Pop Smoke. Got another posthumous album. We've unfortunately over the course of the podcast talked about quite a few of them. Um, to varying degrees of success. I think obviously Mac Miller Circles was the clear standout of all the posthumous albums we've talked about. And this Pop Smoke album, Faith, I thought was certainly not the worst posthumous album I've ever heard, but it just felt like many of these posthumous albums very bloated with a lot of features because you kind of have to have a lot of features. And it almost just kind of didn't even feel much like a Pop Smoke album at times. Um, but overall, I think there was still some tracks worth talking about. Before we get into those, how were you feeling going into this album and then after listening to it?
Yeah, it definitely was not optimistic for the usual reasons with posthumous albums, right? We're coming off a triumphant first posthumous album for Pop Smoke, Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon, made
Mhm.
my top 10. An album that, against all odds, was the fifth best-selling album of 2021 right now. Third best-selling album of last year, the year it came out, but it's the fifth best-selling album of this year too. And it's only behind one actual new release this year from Olivia Rodrigo. Like, it's insane that the Pop Smoke's posthumous album was as successful as it was. Spawned tons of TikTok hits, but also just amazing songs that, again, as we've been saying for a while, everyone knows at this point, just showed the kind of wide-ranging talent Pop Smoke would have been able to been and the force he would have been if he had lived. Right? What You Know About Love comes to mind, of course, Something Special. All these tracks, these bangers, right? And just show how multifaceted he really was. And now to get a second posthumous album pretty quick, right? And you listen to it, and a lot of features. Not that we didn't have a lot of features last year. There's a lot of features, and this just really screams of just kind of creative bankruptcy, man. This is really unethical to me. By all accounts, his mom wanted another album. That's the estate trying to make money, whatever. But the label obviously really, formed this. And if Pop Smoke was still alive, how many of these performances, how many of these random hooks and half finished verses would he have even wanted to share with the world? Because none of them
Mm.
are that good. Like, I think Pop still sounds good just because of his sheer talent, right? He just has a bravado, he has a gruffness, he has a charisma as a
Yeah.
performer, and that's still there. But that's kind of all he's bringing on this to me because he's really almost an MC on his old album as he just kind of shuttling through all these features. So I was
Mhm.
really disappointed with it, but again, I wasn't that surprised that this is how it came out.
Yeah. Um, I think the thing that stood out to me and the reason we're always cautious with these posthumous albums is almost every track felt different. And I think that points to something that you don't really usually get when an artist obviously is able to put their creative mark over something. At least an artist of Pop Smoke's caliber, right? Because you go through the track list and uh, Tell the Vision with Kanye and Pusha T feels like a good music Kanye song. Manslaughter feels like a Rick Ross song. You know, it. I think as you have these different artists pop up, give a verse, um, it really just does not feel like it's something that came genuinely from pop. Now, do I think all these songs are necessarily bad? No, I think some of them are all right, and I think it's fun sometimes to hear some of the features. Like what's cracking with Takeoff. Actually stood out to me as
Yeah,
one of the better tracks.
definitely.
And I thought Takeoff sounded great, better than anything we got on Culture 3. So it's also kind of nice to see, or even something like Woo Baby with Chris Brown. Obviously they're using the like the Neo song. So tired of love songs or whatever it is, but
Right.
um, those sorts of things I found fun. Then there's other tracks, man, like Kid Cudi, Eight Ball. Like I hated that track. I thought that
Oh,
was one of the worst ones. The two with Pusha T. Even though it's always fun to hear Pusha pop up, The one with Kanye, Television, and then Top Shot, I thought were both pretty bad. So hit and
Yeah.
miss. Any that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, Pusha T's there because he's also managed by Pop Smoke's manager, Steven Victor. So kind of label machinations on that one.
Yep.
Looking at the track list, seeing Demeanor with Dua Lipa stood out to me. I was like, oh God, is this a duet's final chapter type
Mhm.
situation? The way Diddy just kind of bastardized the last of the Biggie
Biggie. Yeah.
snippets and demos and all that. Not necessarily. Like, obviously, Dua Levitating took off with DaBaby. She's acquitted herself well with rappers, but that song is really weird to me. Like, I feel like the mix on pop is off. It's bad, and like it felt really disjointed and kind of cut and pasted. And
Mhm.
listening to some of the other songs, was okay. So I wrote a few of these down. More Time. This is the second track, and What's Cracking, and well, one of the ones with Pusha T. They actually had Pop reciting like lyrics he already had on More Time. He's like, her ass fat, feel like jello, which is basically just what the hook on Hello from last year is. Ass fat,
Mm.
jello, on the King of New York
Yep.
mellow. Like, again, this feels like these were demos, you know? Um, What's cracking? He says, run rookie, yeah, he running. Obviously, that's from Welcome to the Party, his first hit.
Yep.
Um, what was it on one of the other songs? He says Big 38 for the weapon again, which is from 44 Bulldog from last year. Like, I just wonder if, like, this either like, oh, well, Pop didn't finish this verse. Let's find something that fits that we do have, We have no way of knowing if that was actually the verse,
Yeah.
or maybe it was actually a demo and he had done it in a better way. And that's why we heard that song already last year. So that kind of stuff just kept sticking in my mind as I noticed it. Um, I guess one thing that I did think was funny was on Beat the Speaker. Pop says it's 10K a feature, which obviously is very dated because
Yeah.
Pop smoked today or
Way
last
more.
year. If he was alive, it's way more than 10K. We all know that.
Way more than 10K. Um, yeah. I think for a posthumous album, it's not all bad, but I think like you said, even some of the ethical, moral aspect of should this have even been something that was made is certainly something to consider
Right.
before listening.
Yeah.
Um,
I just wanted to note too. I think my favorite track is probably 30 featuring Busy Banks, just because Busy Banks is a Brooklyn rapper. I don't know if he actually like completely crossed paths with Pop Smoke, but he was definitely like uh, come up in the evolution of Brooklyn drill since everything happened with Pop Smoke. And I thought he absolutely spazzed on that one. That was a really good feature, but also a feature I feel like makes sense. Um, Speaking of these posthumous albums, though, we just got a trailer for the second Juice World posthumous album coming soon. The Party Never Dies. As usual, the caveats apply.